My name is Don, and I know time's kind of against us here now, but I just have just a little bit. When we talk about cult religions, we kind of, not the occult, but cult religions such as Mormonism, Jehovah's Witness and stuff. Most of these religions really deny the deity of Jesus Christ.
Right.
And I know that, I'm not sure what your feeling is on Dr. Walton Martin, but I think he's written a couple of great books.
Yeah, Kingdom of the Cults, really helpful.
Yeah, it's a great
Kingdom
book.
of the Occult, also very helpful.
And
By the way, Walter Martin preached in our church many times when he was alive. Of course, nobody preaches here when they're dead, but he preached here. Although we have had some dead preachers through the years, but yeah, he was here, and he was a friend, right?
But just as a quote from him, I got the book in the bookstore there. Just a quote from him says, cult expert Dr. Walton Martin once said, the average Jehovah's Witness can make a doctrinal pretzel out of the average Christian in about 30 seconds. Mm-hmm. And I'm just wondering, and that's not my real question, but why maybe we don't have more classes or teachings or assemblies or seminars or whatever on how we can better deal with the cult religions, especially Jehovah's Witness and the Mormons.
No, it's a great point, Don, and I agree with you on that. I think periodically through the years we've had times, and maybe this is a good time to do it again, where we've had a special series of classes, maybe on a Sunday, a special elective series on these cults, because we all run into JWs, we all run into the Mormons, we run into people who are caught up in these things. The books are always in the bookstore, so you can read about it. But I think that's a good suggestion. I think we need to think about maybe doing some special classwork, maybe a fellowship group emphasis on a Sunday morning, going through a series on the cults. I think that would really arm us. I think we're less likely to be pretzelized by those people. Well, I know their arguments. They go to John 1 and try to deny that Jesus is God and all of that. But I do think it's really good to be armed, and not just with a general understanding, but some specific ways to deal with them. That's a good suggestion. I think maybe we can look at the fall and help to equip our congregation to be confronted by those people and give a reason for the hope that is in you. That's a great suggestion. Thank you.
The one question I had for you, though, is just two compelling arguments that they kind of bring out. And you just mentioned John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word. For anybody who doesn't know, the Word was with God and the Word was God. They have put that letter, that article A in there to make it a God. They tell me that there's no articles in the Greek language. I don't know if that's true or not. But my question is, how would you handle the argument? You can answer that in about 10 seconds, I'm sure. But how would you handle the argument if Christ was really God incarnate, or was the Word made flesh? Then you cannot kill God, therefore how is it possible to kill God? The other one is found in Matthew 1:21, where Christ was born, and they'll call his name Jesus, and he will save his people from their sin, indicating Israel. And that would be my question.
Yeah, they nitpick. Of course, there are articles in the Greek. There's the definite article. The indefinite article is unstated. There's no word for the indefinite article, so that's where they say but there's an article. There's a word for the definite article. It's a one letter with a breathing on it. So, but the arguments they make in John 1:1 are totally irrelevant. Where that argument falls down is that Jesus said, I and my Father are one. He said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. So what you want to do is get them out of fooling around with non-existent articles in John 1 to the things that Jesus said. This is the ploy that they use. Don't argue about the things that aren't there. Argue about the things that are there. And there are all kinds of evidences of the deity of Christ. As to he came to save his people from their sins, the primary fulfillment of that would, of course, be Israel. That's not apart from that. When it says, when the angel came to announce his birth, it said he will reign on the throne of his father David. So that's implied there. I think he is the Messiah of Israel. And look, even Paul says, to the Jew first, Romans 1, and also to the Greek. Jesus said, salvation is of the Jews. So I believe when it says he came to save his people, that the first and primary target of that pronoun was, in fact, Israel. But it doesn't end there, because you can show in the Old Testament how that the promise of salvation was to extend to the nations. You remember a few weeks ago we talked about the mustard seed that grew and the birds came in the mustard seed, and I took you back to Ezekiel 17:22-24, where it describes the kingdom, and the birds that come into the tree are all the nations of the world. So you can see world salvation, Gentile salvation in the Old Testament through Israel. Salvation is of the Jews, but it extends to the whole world. So again, they want to pick these little things in a passage, these little nuances in a word, and ignore the vast instruction of Scripture. That's why you can take an 18-year-old kid, put him on a bicycle, and let him ride around and confuse people, because you give him this simplistic formula with just a few little verses and a few nuances. And the truth of the matter is, if you get involved with one of these people, you can literally take them apart if you understand the broad, sweeping reality of Scripture, because they don't know that. They only know the little formulas that they have been taught. Okay? Good question.